Hey youth workers, my name is Heather Fleece, and I am a junior high pastor in the great state of Minnesota. I've been in the same position as the junior high pastor at Wooddale Church for 21 years because junior highers are my favorite people in the universe. 5 important things for you to know about me. Number 1, this is not my natural hair curl. I pay to have it look like this. I get a perm every 5 months. My hair is stick straight naturally. Number 2, I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, even on the hard days, and there are plenty of hard days. Number 3, I own 98 pairs of shorts and 1 pair of jeans. I wear shorts all year long in Minnesota, even if it's 40 below wind chill. Number 4, I am happily married to my husband, Chad. And number 5, even more happily married once he surprised me with our St. Bernard puppy. Her name is Jingle Bell. She's now 2 years old, and she weighs 140 pounds. I'm so excited to share with you and help you understand something I'm very passionate about. It comes from both my personal experience and my professional experience. When I was growing up in southern Minnesota, I was a good church girl. My family went every time the doors were open. And in high school, we had a youth pastor, and his name was Bob. And Bob was a great guy, but I had a little bit of a problem because Bob only contacted me when he needed something from me. So if there was a new girl that was coming to the ministry and someone needed to befriend her, Bob would call me. If there was a Bible study that needed to be led, Bob would contact me. But that's it. I was in choir, I was in softball, I was doing so many things that he could come and see me do, and yet the only time he ever contacted me was when he needed something. And even though I was only 16 years old at the time, it didn't feel right. So when I started ministry, at age 19, at a small church right near my college, I wanted things to be different. And as I've grown in ministry, I've even done some math, which is very hard for me, but thanks to the calculator, I figured it out. On an average week, if I get a kid for the full time, I get him for 3 hours a week. And when I did the math, I realized that 99.08% of his life is spent outside the walls of our church building. If I am only interacting with him and investing in him in those 3 hours, I'm missing over 99% of his life. That's just not right, right? So I decided to do something different about it, and I challenge all of those who work with me in the ministry to do the same. We go to where the kids are. I hate to spiritualize it, but didn't Jesus kind of do the same thing? Didn't he go to where the people who needed him were? So we go to hockey games, we go to plays, we go to synchronized swimming events. I've even seen a kid get his black belt in karate. Why? Because it matters. There was a girl named Lydia who was part of our ministry, but she was minimally involved. Her mom wanted me to get to know her, so one afternoon after a service, we were out in the common area, and her mom saw Lydia across the room, and I was standing next to her mom. And her mom said, "Lydia, come here, come and see Heather, come and talk to Heather." And Lydia, no joke, looked at me, turned around, and ran away. And I remember being like, "Okay, sweetie, we'll talk to you later." Her mom was devastated. I said, "Don't worry, I am not easily deterred." And Lydia became my hit list. So the next week when we were hanging out at our doctrinal class, which she was forced to be a part of, she was sitting in the back row with her arms crossed. But during the break, I heard her talking to some friends. And I heard her talk about being involved in a color guard at her school. Now, I need to be honest, when I was growing up in southern Minnesota, color guard girls were only the girls who couldn't quite make the cheer squad, woo, like me. But still, I needed to figure out a way to connect with Lydia. So I went over to her and I was like, "Hey, do you do color guard?" I didn't even know how to say it. "Do you play color guard? Are you involved in color guard? Do you do color guard?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I said, "I want to come and watch you do it." And she goes, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, get me a schedule." Our program that night ended at 6 o'clock. I went up to my office, and at 6:25, there was an email from Lydia with her color guard schedule. So I looked at it, I compared it to my calendar. The only one that I could go to was on a night when I had a date night planned with my boyfriend, now my husband at the time, and it was 17 miles away, 34 miles round trip. But I was like, here we go. So my husband and I, on our date night, got in the car and drove 17 miles to watch Lydia perform for 4.5 minutes while she was spinning a white plastic gun. But you can be sure I was down on the mat, I had my camera, we took pictures with her after. And guys, I'm not kidding you. I'm not being dramatic, I promise, although I have the tendency to be dramatic. It changed everything. If you could see the picture of her smiling face, and if you could have seen her change in demeanor the next Sunday at our doctrinal class, it changed everything. And why? Because I chose to show up. I chose to invest in that 99.08% of her life that was outside the walls of our church. How many of our students think we only care about how often they're at church, or how much they read their Bible, or whether or not they are part of the quiz bowl, or whether or not they have the right answer on a Sunday or during small group? We need them to understand that we care about them. Now, I know some of you are thinking, Heather, I am already maxed out. I'm already pushing my volunteer time or the time that my spouse wants me to be gone. But I'm telling you, I highly recommend taking the time that you're currently volunteering and taking a segment of it and investing in this. It will change things. When I have the chance to have an interaction with a kid that's one-on-one, to see them do their thing, it changes things. So just a couple of things to think about. I actually have money in my budget at church that's set aside for my volunteers to just do this. So paid staff who are listening, I know I'm putting a little pressure on you, but wouldn't it be worth it to set aside $100 of your whole budget for the year to say to leaders, if you go to a basketball tournament and you pay $6, I'll reimburse you for that. If you take a kid to McDonald's for a Coke or for a cone, you save the receipt and turn it in, I'll reimburse you for that. It's worth it. And hey, how about bringing some other kids along? I went to Kelsey's volleyball game one time and I had Megan come with me. So Megan and I got to have a shared experience with pom-poms, by the way, while we cheered for Kelsey, her friend, out on the volleyball court. It was so great. For those of you who are parents, soccer games are an awesome time to bring your kids to the soccer field where there's usually a playground and let them be a part of it as you support the kids. So there are ways to be creative. I've even heard of female volunteers who invite girls to come grocery shopping with them so that they can manage multiple carts, but it's a shared experience and it's one-on-one. I want you to think about your past experience in youth ministry. If you had someone who invested in you like this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It gave depth and meaning to your youth ministry, and my guess is you're still connected to that person. But if you're like me and that was lacking, think of how it could change things. So even though it's a little personal on my behalf, it is professional because I have seen year after year how it works. Another little side note, I always take a picture and I always bring snacks. So whether it's a Powerade and a Snickers or a Mountain Dew and some Sour Patch Kids, I bring them with me. I get a picture with the kid after. If it's appropriate, I put it on social media. At the least, I send the picture to him or his parents. Another little bit side benefit, when I go, I get to hang out with the parents on the sidelines or in the bleachers. I get to connect with them. The girl thinks I'm only there for her, but I'm actually doing double ministry with the parents. And the reputation of your church ministry is enhanced. I am a former cheerleader, it's true. So when I go to games like this, I figure I might as well get the credit, so I'm kind of loud. And multiple times, people have said to the parent of the kid I'm watching, who is that? And they're like, oh, that's one of our youth workers from church. And they always say the same thing. What? Your youth workers come to stuff like this? And they say, yeah, all the time. It enhances the reputation of our church community at the same time. So here's my question. Why wouldn't you do this, right? So I would love for you to talk about it with those that you minister with or with those who are leading your ministry and figure out how can you make this happen and how can lives of kids be influenced 99.08% of them. Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of your time, whatever you're doing, and I hope to meet you personally someday.